9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Discussing everything about the afterlife and spirit world. Coming to you all the way from Ireland. It's Sandie Byrne.
This is Sandie, host of the Life AfterLife podcast. I want to invite you to become a patron of the podcast. For just €5 per month, you will get ad-free content, video episodes, exclusive events and discounts throughout the year as a thank you for your support. Check out the link to my Patreon page in the description box attached, or go to Patreon and search for Life After Life with Sandie Byrne. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Life After Life with me, Sandie Byrne. And joining me from the United States today, I have a lady called Alexandra Renders, and she's in the northeastern part, somewhere between New Hampshire and Massachusetts. Is that right, Alexandra?
Yes, yeah, between the two, yes.
Between the two. Well, first of all, welcome to the Life After Life podcast, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So the reason that I'm so excited to talk about Alexandra is because she is an entrepreneur, okay? I'm an entrepreneur, but not on the scale that Alexandra is, because Alexandra founded and runs her own investment company. It is an investment company, isn't it, Alexandra?
Yes, it is. Yep.
And did you always work on the finance side? Is that your background?
Yes, ever since I got out of college. I've been in the industry for 37 years. So I entered in 1986. So I've been in the industry straight through.
Straight through. I want to talk to you a little bit about, how you use spirituality in your business, okay? And, there's a few things that you've said, in the past about controlling your feelings, your thoughts, your actions to create an outcome. I mean, I love all of that and I want to get into it. But can you tell us a bit of how you, kind of got into that side of it? Because someone with a financial background tends to be very logistically based. And, so how did this come about for you, this transformation, if you like?
Okay. So I very aptly use both hemispheres of my brain. I think they're like mostly equally weighted. But the truth is, I ended up in this industry by default due to really my childhood damage. It wasn't like this big aspiration to be this, Wall Street executive. The truth of the matter is I'm good at it. It's simple for me because I do use both hemispheres in my brain, and I do bring a very high level of intuition into my work. But, and when I say this, it had to do with my conditioning. I had to prove myself. These were all like unconscious conditioning. I had to strive to something to feel a sense of importance. And this was a real natural fit for me. So there's always a positive to, like, I would just say, like, experiences in life, like our upbringing and so on. But once I entered the industry, I realized like I was very good at it. It was a natural ability for me because I did rely on my intuition, which was highly evolved intuition. And unbeknownst to me, like I didn't really realize the extent to which I was psychic, to which I was intuitive, until I continued down the path of the industry and I realized I didn't need to read a newspaper. Yeah. All I really needed to do was look at data. And so essentially what happened for me when I started in the industry, I was really coming from my masculine form. I was really, being a driver. And even though I was using my intuition, I want to say that I was really operating more from my masculine, and it was really untrue to who I was. It was really making me ill, for lack of a better way to say it. And I remember I was in New York City, and it was in 1995, and I wasn't feeling good, but I really wasn't clear that I wasn't feeling good. I was such a driver that I didn't really have a sense that my body wasn't functioning so great. I was walking through Grand Central Station, and I was on the way to a board meeting, and there was an old lady who was like trying to get people's attention. You could see she didn't speak English well, and everybody was just running past her. No one wanted to help her. And I even was going past with my briefcase and I'm going to my meeting, and then something just like pulled me back. And I went to her and I said, how can I help you? You know, barely able to speak English, but I was able to slow down, get her to where she needed to go, walk her down to where she was, make sure she got onto the right train, write down the name of the station she needed to go to. And it made me late. But I remember as I was leaving her, she touched my face and she said, "You're an angel." And I got goosebumps all over. And I said, I just looked up and I said, "Okay, God, get me out of here." I knew I was losing myself, you know. And so as soon as I was done with my meeting, I called my recruiter and I took a job. I had many offers, but I decided to take one at half the pay out of New York City in the middle of the country, actually being a chief investment officer for a bank that wanted to go public. And I was scared at taking the position for a number of reasons. It was less money and there was a lot of responsibility. But I said, you know what, I'm going for it. Once I got there, because I was slowing down, I realized I was sick. And I was very sick. Yeah. I had MS. And because I slowed down, I started to get the sensations of, you know, all kinds of issues that come with remittance, relapsing MS. Anyway, it became my second career was to heal my physical body. And from 95 to 99, that's like, even though I was working full time, no one knew that I was sick because I'm so prideful. I recovered. I healed 100%, all my plaques. I went after this like I went after my career. It became a second career. I was getting certain nutritional IVs. I found out why I had MS, like what nutritional deficiencies I had, what heavy metals. I could go on. And I followed to the T a book, and I'm going to cite it here, The MS Diet by Dr. Swank in 1950. It was written in 1950. Followed it, took out, like, you know, now a lot of the oils are bastardized. I took out the canola oil and some of the other things, but followed that diet to a T along with many other measures, including becoming a Reiki master. Wow. So I became a Reiki master. Okay. And that was the beginning of me bridging the gap between finance and energy and light and spirituality. And during that process, it's really interesting. I was an enigma. I've always been an enigma, but I mean, I really felt like I was becoming more and more of a unicorn in my industry because I was bringing in those elements, because naturally it becomes part of me. Once you open like that, that's you. There's like, you can't force a genie back in the bottle. And I remember, I went through a crisis as I was kind of having some like identity crisis issues, if you will, like in the early 2000s. You know, I was very aptly called the financial crisis and the tech bubble because I was able to use my higher knowing. Yep. But in that process, like during the tech bubble, like during that time period, I remember going through a bit of a crisis because I had two sides to me. And I was really uncomfortable with that seer, that knower, that intuitive, because I was always made fun of for it. It was not a safe thing for me growing up. And and I can't say that I evolved out of that quickly. I just didn't. But I do know after I called the financial crisis with accuracy and being very like harassed by my colleagues because of the way I figured it out. Nonetheless, I did well. They didn't. I did. I knew I had to get out of corporate because it was no longer, something was like pushing against me. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started my own company. And unbeknownst to me, I wanted to start a movement that I wasn't really fully conscious of until I started the company. And I wanted to run it from my deeply feminine roots while I'm still going to have that ability from the masculine side to be a driver and an executor. but I wanted to really bring in the elements of the feminine into the work and spiritual aspects. But it wasn't until 2018 when I met my husband, who's a coach, who was my friend first, and I brought him in I wasn't still satisfied. As successful as my company was, I wasn't fully satisfied. I just wasn't fully satisfied, and I couldn't figure out why. So I brought him over from Belgium to coach with me. And I remember I didn't want to bring him here. I was scared to death because he said to me, it's time to get real. And it really ticked me off. I'm like, it's time to get real. Of course I'm real. So I wasn't going to bring him here, but I did. And what came from that, I had to stand in front of all my employees and tell them, now they know me as a benevolent general, so this blew them out of the water. I had to tell them, I am truly afraid of rejection. And that was the day that birthed the new values of my company: love, safety, self-development, because I need to be around people who are willing to evolve. And if they are not, I can't work with them. Yeah. I can't. And finally the drive towards the better good. And so that was the day that rebirthed, that really I said, I am going to bring spiritual principles to my business. And, the sad thing about it is, when I first announced this to the public, before I announced it to the public, so many people who were close to me are like, aren't you afraid? Don't you think people are going to think you're a wingnut? And I said, bringing love, which everybody needs and wants and desires and has to have to survive, that makes me look like I'm a wingnut because I'm bringing that into my company. I don't care what anybody says. That's who I am. Yeah. That's who I am. And there's nothing more important to me than that.
Yeah. And you have to be true to yourself first.
Yeah. So that's the history. I don't mean to go, but it was an evolution. And it's a lot of fear that you have to walk through to get to your truth.
Yeah, 100%. And, there's so much to unpick in that. But, it's amazing. And it's amazing the way life brings us full circle. There's always something. Now, I know that you had to go through the MS, and I'm really sorry to hear that. But I'm glad that you managed to heal yourself, But I think that was, your wake-up call. And I love the way that you were describing that, you were in the subway. Because I always said it, like I spent 3 years living in London and I worked for the Financial Times. So I was like right in the heart of the city. And every day it was the tube, journey in and everything. And I always say, even when I'm back in London, even though I'm not rushing, you feel like you have to rush, don't you? We tend to follow the herd with everything. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So that's why I don't really mind when people call me woo-woo now, because I just don't follow anymore. This is just me. So, I love your story, and I love that, you bring your staff on board with this, and that they're all on board, because, I always say you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. Okay. So if you're giving your staff what they need as well, they're going to be more productive. So from a business sense, that's, 100% right. But from a human sense, it's so caring, isn't it? Because, you tell me that, or I've seen here that your staff have unlimited access to coaches, therapists, healers. Like, how does that work? Do you have somebody on staff, or... they can just call up and they can really do any. I mean, we send them off to retreats and everything. But Pascal, who is my now partner, we have our own company, and I will, I'm not a lightweight. I've been for therapy since I was 18. I've been in and out of different offices and healers and shamans and so on. And I'm a channel and medium myself. I do mediumship, and my channel has the ability to see shadows. That's what my channel does. Mm-hmm. It sees the injury behind diseases and so on. So essentially my team, so Pascal's on team for anyone, anytime. And the beautiful thing about it is they know we're at arm's length. He doesn't share with me what's going on, because I don't want to know. I just want my people to thrive. I want them to thrive. And the truth of the matter is, he is the best
He is a transpersonal therapist. He gave up his licenses because he is the best trauma specialist. He can heal PTSD in 2 hours. He has studied trauma, rapid response therapy, NLP, destination method. He has methods to heal trauma and limited beliefs in a 2-hour session. And I've seen it with people. It happened with me. I was sexually assaulted as a child, so as a young girl. And I mean, bottom line is they have total access to him. And if they want to go to retreats, they have access. Like we sent somebody as a bonus to the Path of Love for a week, full access. We do family constellations every week. So every month, once a month, the whole team is in the room. We offer to all our clients to come in for free to do a constellation, and it's free. And we also offer it to the community, to nonprofit leaders, to anyone who has a question, individuals, companies, doesn't matter. Once a month, we offer that in office. Yeah. And so it's not just my team, it's to everyone.
It's to everybody. Yeah. I mean, that's so generous. But, I can see why that lady called you an angel, because, you're really looking out for people. So, for people that are listening, a lot of people, have their own thing going on, whether it's a side hustle or, they've got their own business or whatever. Is there other ways where you bring your spiritual beliefs into business? I mean, I get that you use it through your staff, okay?
Yeah.
But is there other ways? I mean, what does it mean to be spiritual in business?
Yeah. Well, for me, it's about awakening. It's about awakening and raising awareness around our interconnectivity, right? Because I think this is why I'm so big on shadow, like really taking care of self and looking at self and healing self. And that is at the core, I would say, of the core values of the company, where we will focus a lot of our money. But I'm a big believer in raising awareness. And so I believe that everything I do affects the whole. Everything. Every choice I make, every word I use. And so what we do is we offer, like, even as I talk about markets, because I am an intuitive and I can tell you I know everything that's happening, even as I talk about it, I bring in the higher spiritual principles around it. Like this, where we are headed right now, is simply an agreement on a collective consciousness level to go in this direction. If we raise our level of awareness, we can change the direction of where we're going. Yeah. For humanity. And I always bring those, once or twice a month, we actually present to clients or to anyone who wants to come on Zoom, anyone, and we do an economic overview of what's going on. But in that, we weave in always what I know to be true is that we could change the collective story and change the face and the direction. So that's part of ways that I weave that in. Our community give back is another way that I weave it in. And I just really feel like, I don't know, I think it was Mother Teresa who said, like, we can't do big things, but it's the small things that add up to the big things, right? And I look at myself as someone who is capable of doing small things. And those small things, whatever I can do, is I know that it makes a difference. So for me, as much as I can offer, like, those insights of spiritual principles that can change the face and the direction, I'm going to do. So that's one way. I would say, like, another way is I believe in the embodiment of what I believe in. So, like, the values of the company themselves, I live them. And if I'm not living them, somebody needs to call me out. Tell me I'm not living them, because I want to live in.
You can't preach something, and not practice it. So you have to be very conscious of that.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? So I love the way you talk about, all the small things leading into the big things, okay? And it just makes us aware that we need to be very conscious in the choices, the life choices that we're making, whether it's in life or in business. Like, what does that look like? How can people begin to be aware or more conscious of their choices?
Okay. Well, one thing I think that is really important is I think, I don't know much about, the culture in Ireland, but I can speak to what I experienced in the United States.
Yeah.
And I can say, and I've seen this in Belgium, as well. People are very detached from their feelings.
They are.
Like, we have lost sight of what we are feeling inside. Like, and the four core feelings: mad, sad, glad, and scared. And we are any deviation from that to one extreme or the other, or not. And personally, I think that is at the core of how we learn. And maybe I'm forgetting the question, but I'm going to answer it this way. I feel like this is at the core of how we can evolve, become better leaders, become better business owners, become better partners, and actually better partners to ourselves. Better partners to ourselves. Like, through me learning about my own feelings, okay, like my fear of rejection, for example, but the underlying depth of pain that was associated with that fear. And even more important, my anger. Because I used to have rosacea before I made that discovery. I have no makeup on. I have no rosacea anymore.
No.
You know why? I got healthy with my relationship to anger.
Yeah.
Very healthy. And I said to you that I'm a channel. So I channel once a week for free to anyone who wants to go on Zoom. Okay. And one of the things that the Willow Beings have taught me is that women need to get more into their anger, not anger that blurts out to people, that's completely displaced. Talking about anger in ways where someone is, you're not clearly defining your boundaries. What are your boundaries? What's acceptable? What is not? If women have these boundaries and get in touch with their anger, there really wouldn't be a war in the world, because women would not allow their children to go to war.
Yeah.
Just wouldn't. We wouldn't. Naturally, instinctively, we are protectors of our tribe, of our children that way, right? And men, if they can tap into their fear and their sadness, would no longer have that intense anger that blurts out. See, so getting back to the point, knowing and understanding your feelings is the most deeply loving thing you could do for yourself. And that always comes through the mirror. Like, somebody's getting on your nerves or something's happening, like, okay, what about you is like that person? Why is that getting on your nerves? Always reflecting back. I just hope that helps, because I feel like a good leader, a truly good leader, truly good leader is going to do that, is going to literally do the work to understand themselves so they can fall in love with themselves. Because once you do that, you can't harm another human being. It's impossible. So,
and, we've had a couple of mic drop moments there, if people didn't realize it. First is to be a better partner to yourself. Okay, that's a writer downer. It's a keeper. Be a better partner to yourself. That's a mic drop moment. But the other one too is about leadership. Okay, and I've been doing a lot of work, and I've put a course together, and I'm just starting it around this, okay, about self-love and loving yourself. And when we talk about leadership, people tend to think of it in a workplace environment. Okay, yes, there is leadership in a workplace environment, but it's not just within the workplace environment, okay? It's you, because if you're better to yourself, if you put yourself on a pedestal, if you love yourself, if you're true to yourself, then other people will follow that lead. And that's where it has to start. So there's 2 mic drop moments for people right there, okay? Save it, bookmark it, whatever you can do with a podcast. But these are things that you need to remember, okay? So be more conscious in the choices that you're making. And, I loved this. I read this in your bio. People just want to be loved and accepted. And that's where everything that you do comes from. People just want to be loved and accepted. It's a no-brainer, isn't it?
It's a no-brainer. I want to be loved and accepted. Who doesn't? Like,
Who doesn't?
It's so true. Like, I've honestly had the great opportunity to be with people who were crossing.
Yeah.
Okay. I have both parents who were in hospice, and I had to go through their process with them, but I also had a beloved, like, mom, mom number two, like a very good friend in the family, and another person that I was very close to, who all were passing. And at the end of the day, all they wanted was one thing: to know they were loved. That's it.
That's all we want.
That's all we want. So what are we waiting for?
But if we can do it for ourselves, once we learn to do it for ourselves, then we can do it for other people. And I'm sure you spoke about your trauma from your childhood or your youth, and you talked about the need to heal your inner self. And through the healing came the intuition. Can you just, and I don't want you to go into, everything you went through when you were young, but, how did you heal? Like, what steps did you take to heal yourself?
Okay, yeah, that's really good. I'm really good at sticking, like, I historically have been so good at sticking my head in the sand and not wanting to see certain circumstances in my life. I had to get, like, really aware that my ability to disassociate is part of the trauma that I experienced. So once I learned that I tended to disassociate, I had to learn certain patterns to associate. That's a really important, like, especially anybody who has experienced any form of, like, intense trauma or even neglect, because really a lot of the experience I had was neglect. And because it did make me disassociate from my pain a lot. So that was the number one thing. All I could say is it's not, I don't want to say it's an easy path to learn, but it's an important path. If you want, I knew that if I wanted true happiness in my life, I had a lot of healing I had to do. And I just had to be willing to do it, and willing to know, like, I could get, like, kind of rigid and think that I know it all. Not anymore. But that was definitely part of my makeup, because I didn't want, I had a perfection syndrome.
We all can.
I just had it's about brutal honesty. And I swear, I have to tell you what I did at one point, and I really appreciate this. One of my teachers early on said to me two things. Like, if there's somebody you meet who's, like, it's really irritating you, or your partner is really irritating you, you need to be like, what of me is like that? What of me does that? Like, my mother used to irritate the heck out of me because she was such a control freak, okay? Well, guess what? Ding, 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 ding. Guess who else is a control freak? Like, you don't make it to the top of the chain on Wall Street unless you're a bit of a control freak at an early age. Like, by mid-20s, I was managing a 40-broker office. You don't do that without being a control freak. Okay.
Absolutely.
Which leads to every relationship that you have, period. So that was, like, I think a really powerful, I'd say one of the most powerful things anybody ever said to me, because then I started walking through life with, like, an aha moment, like, all the time, like, oh my God, I do that. Oh God. So really, I would say that was, like, the beginning of, like, a real evolution for me, because it allowed me to see myself more clearly and see the ways that, And then there was also, because I told you I disassociated a lot, there was a part of me that didn't want to incarnate into this physical body. Like, because I could see the other realms very clearly, and I'm in touch with the other realms, there was a part of me that was, like, even though I was highly successful here on this planet, there was a part of me that was disassociating and just wanting to be in those realms, And I call that, to a certain degree, spiritual bypass. Like, oh, I can see angels, so it's all good. And no, like, I was bypassing And that's also an unhealthy behavior. So I was like really looking, it's just about constant self-reflection, and knowing like when you're uncomfortable, and just knowing like in every relationship, we're both responsible.
Yeah.
Any relationship I have, we are both responsible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can only be responsible for yourself, and that's the
Yeah.
truth. And I love
Yeah.
the way you talk about the bypass, because I don't know if you're familiar with the late Mavis Patilla, but I love her quote that you can't be so spiritual as to be of no earthly value. So you have to find a happy place in between. Like, when it's said to you, it's like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to say, and I loved that about her. So just for the business owners out there that are tuning in, and maybe this is just something that we can apply to life as well, are those idealistic values, those spiritual values, are they realistic on a day-to-day basis, especially as somebody in business?
100%. 100%. 100%. First of all, what I know is we all have a tendency to wear masks. Like, we're too afraid to show our authenticity.
Yeah.
If we are not showing our authenticity, we're going down a sinkhole. Mm-hmm. And I think all of us can agree we're kind of getting a little close to that.
We are.
It's time to rip the mask off, period, and become the sentient beings that we are. Live our sentient nature. I have goosebumps. That is who we are. Yeah. We aren't this role that we decide to take on. Yes, taking on roles in our life could be part of our pleasure. Creating the company I created truly is part of my pleasure, because I love what I've created and the vibe I've created. However, if I can't sense all of me, I'm half dead. And I was half dead my whole life, okay? Or even 3/4 dead. So it is the only thing that's real.
It is.
Everything else is what we make. So what are we going to make? 100%. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No.
About it.
No, and you come across so well, and it just makes total sense to me, because there's so many people out there, whether they're running their own business, whether they're working for somebody else, maybe they're a stay-at-home parent or whatever, and we kind of wake up in the morning and we think, oh, another day of this, or do I have to do this today? And I always say to people, find something about it that you like, So it's like me, I don't click with everybody that I meet on a daily basis. I don't. But, I concentrate on something that I like. Do I like their hairdo? Do I like the earrings that they're wearing? Do I like the cardigan that they're wearing? So concentrate on something that you like. Maybe you like the drive to work. Maybe you like stopping for a coffee at the coffee shop on the way into work. Find something about it that you like. The rest will follow. But we concentrate too much on the things that don't inspire us, that don't raise our energy, and therefore we bring ourselves down more. And that, I think, is exactly what you're saying to us here today.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I mean, I believe in reincarnation. So, but we've come here. We've come here. We have a role. We've taken on roles, so to speak. Yeah. But those roles are meaningless unless we bring truth and find truth and happiness. Like, if you're at a job you really can't stand, find a new one. Like, literally, I mean it. Like, it is about finding our joy, and do you dislike your job because you really don't like the function, or is it because there's some underlying issues you have that are unresolved? Like, a boss is pushing up against you and she's really pissing you off. Is it you or is it her? And I'm going to give some example that happened I'm gonna give you an example of something that happened in my own work. There was a woman who worked for me who I adore. I love her, and yet she was pushing up against my buttons. Like every time I would go in and say, "Okay, I need you to, I need please check this, do this, whatever," it would be like there would be this push up against me, push, like like I can't do it, whatever. And I thought, well, wait a second. Like my ego self was like, I'm the owner of this company. She needs to do this for me. You know what I mean? And in any other circumstance, I could tell you, she probably would have been written up in any other company I was in, because there was a feeling of like undermining and obstinance and all that. Mm-hmm. But I instead went back to my office and I said, okay, why am I like, I feel uncomfortable. I don't want to go in there. I was getting like, I just was shying away. Yeah, that's my company. What's my problem? Well, it turns out I said, I got to go talk to her. I got to tell her how I feel. Like and I realized I had to figure out that when I walked into her office, I can sense her anxiety. Her anxiety reminded me of my mother. Now I'm 50, almost 60 years old. Okay. She reminded me of my mother because my mother was highly anxious, and it made me uncomfortable going in there to ask her to do something because I couldn't fix my mom. So there was this deep discomfort. So we ended up having to, I had to talk to her about what I was feeling. In the end, she ended up doing a trauma process with Pascal because she had some trauma as well around all this. We worked it through. 2 hours later, a year and a half later, this is my top employee, top. I would suggest her to any company in the world. She is the best. Literally the best employee I have ever had in my life. That's amazing. My life. She's the best. But in any other organization, they would have taken that behavior and been like, she's being obstinate. She's being, no. That's love.
That's, yeah.
That's
and it
love.
Is.
That's
But it was
love.
also you giving your time to her. Because you were thinking, okay, well, there's something under this. And, I'm guilty of that too. Sometimes we just don't stop, and think, mm-hmm. What caused her to say or do or, whatever. And mm-hmm. I think that's beautiful. And like, that's definitely something that I'm going to be more aware of.
So here's something I want to share with you for any employer out there. If you could take that time, so let's say overall, what was 2 hours in a session with Pascal was probably about 2 hours for me to figure out what was going on with myself. So let's say it took a total of 5 hours of healing. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's a year and a half later, and I can assure you, I've received far more than 5 hours
from her
of pleasure, of ease, of trust from this person.
Yeah.
More. Like she's given back to me 50 times more than what I had to put into that relationship, easily.
Yeah.
And
she's not only loyal to you, she's loyal to the company. She, you've got the best of her now, and she'll always appreciate that.
Yeah, it's so awesome.
I absolutely love that story. I absolutely love that story.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, I have so many like that, and it makes my day. And also, not everybody's cut out for this either, and that's okay too. Yeah, that's okay.
And one thing that I will say, I agree with you that not everyone's cut out for it. I think everybody's got the spiritual in them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I think because of, like you talked about, it's facing up to your past traumas. Why mm-hmm. are you hiding it? It's in there. Mm-hmm. You just mm-hmm. need to let it out, and mm-hmm. most people don't. Mm-hmm. Most people don't.
Yeah, I'm the type of person who digs my heels into the sand. It's like, all right, if you're going to be in my sphere, if you're going to be with me, then we're going to do the work together, no matter what it takes, as long as there's that willingness,
Yeah.
So
100%.
Mm-hmm.
My God, I could talk to you forever because, like, I just resonate with everything that you've said, and I hope that people, really listen to this, and if you're a business owner, listen to it twice or 3 times because there's so many writer downers in there. So I'm going to put the link to your website in the description box attached. It's investwithwillow.com. Will people find the links to your public spaces, you know, you do this,
Yeah.
the online Zoom places, are all those links on your website?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to send you to another website as well.
Okay.
It will be built in 2 weeks. It will be done. It's www.innerstatesofreedom.com. Okay, and there you will see. If you can't find me there, definitely go to investwithwillow.com and email me, and I will give you all the links that you need. So I'll give you links to all the free channels. Links to, any of the coaching we do, but links to, like, I have an economic intuitive newsletter. So I actually do a weekly newsletter because I downloaded in 2012 everything that's happening, every single thing that's happening today. So I know, yeah. So I share all of that, between my knowledge, because I'm deeply analytical too. So I have like I like charts and numbers, and it's like sacred geometry, and it creates this whole like pattern and story, which is kind of crazy, but so they can also get access to that as well. So if you can't get to me on Inner States of Freedom, definitely go to www.investwithwillow.com, and you'll see me in there, and just email me.
Okay. Well, I know you said 2 weeks, but by the time this podcast goes live, the website should be live. So just for people listening, cool. I'll put the link into this description box attached, and it should be live, but you can always contact Alexandra directly if you wish. Thank you so much for your time. I actually feel energized after our conversation, and I'm definitely going to look at things in a different way. I mean, I do try and bring my spiritual side into everything, but I do want to leave on this note, and I hope you agree with this, because it was an eye-opener moment for me with Tony Robbins. He did he did a lot of live sessions during the pandemic and everything, and he's great. And it had happened to me where I just, sometimes. I'm a natural redhead, so sometimes I will let loose, and I do. And it just so happened that, I did, say something, I wouldn't say it was inappropriate, but sometimes we just say something that we don't really mean. And I was really beating myself up over it, even though, it was all fine and everything. And he said, we're human, we're human. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to, get a little bit of Tourette's every now and again, where we're just going to let it out. But it's how you follow up with things that makes the person. It's not what you do in the heat of the moment, it's how you follow up. And like that resonated with me. So if you feel and you're listening and you're thinking like, she's amazing and she's this, Alexandra's this and that and the other, and she's successful and she's this. Yes, she is, but she hasn't been every single day of her life. She's had moments, So, you don't have to be uber spiritual to make something right. Yeah. No. Learn, as long as you learn from it.
Thank you. That is such a beautiful absolute truth. I mean, I used to beat myself up all the time. Yeah. All the time. And believe me, I have stories related to that. But yeah, I do. I beat myself up over something since college. And then when I saw the woman about 2 years ago at my mother's graveside, I haven't seen since college, I said, "Oh my God, Mary Rose, I always thought about this." And she said, what was that? She forgot.
She'd forgotten.
But I decided to beat myself up for 40 years. I mean, come on. I love that. I'm human. And to be human is to have all of the flaws, all of the perfection and all of the flaws, right? Which is all part of the perfection.
That's absolutely it. Alexandra, thank you so much for your time. I will definitely be tuning into some of your live sessions. I'm going straight on there now looking for some links. And so thank you for your time, and for everybody listening, thank you for your time also. And I will see you in the next episode of Life After Life. So until then, take care and stay safe.
Discussing everything about the afterlife and spirit world.